Please help me welcome the speaker, I'm adding to speaker. Come forward. So, okay, all right, all right. Can you see the timing? Right there. Okay, all right, I see. You can still point. She has a live microphone. She's never muted. You, okay, all right. Anyway, here we go. All right. Um, Ashley Chang, she loves you. She loves you. Ashley Chang.
Well, I hung on the skateboard, so I followed him, and he was up on stage. He was scrawny at the time, shorter than most women would prefer, but he was gripping a microphone with a death grip, and he's shouting heavy metal into the void. Ooh, what's this guy? His name was Jeremy Allen, and he was a tough bad boy. When he wasn't pulling girls, he was pulling stunts. And when he wasn't doing any of that, he was on track to become CEO in rocket science. And that's what happened. I fell for him. What? In no time, it was time to graduate. So I got my things and I moved back home to the Bay Area, 1,000 miles away. But Jared, he stayed close. I learned that he was like a rough guard dog kind of guy. He was intimidating, harsh, but he was also protective as hell. For instance, when I got my very first boyfriend and I lost my very first boyfriend, Jared was there. Or when I break a bad boss, you know it's not pretty, Jared was there. And honestly, when I got caught by the cops at 3 o'clock in the morning for sneaking out of my parents' house, you know Cher was definitely there in spirit. And these were the kinds of wild stories he and I would trade in our wild 20s until we finally reconnected back in San Diego on campus nearly 10 years later. And that's when Jer took my hand, he took me out, and he took my first timers Toastmasters ribbon. It's the start of my life, so please go ahead and dance along. We had so much fun. That was our yearly tradition, reuniting once a year, every year, until one day, that day that he met her, the one. She was so different than all the other girls he had ever dated. She was like a calming silence to his heavy metal. And I don't know how she did it, but she transformed that rough guard dog of a guy into a gentleman with a beating human heart. And I saw before my eyes this guy I knew for years transformed from Jer to Mr. Allen, a loving father and husband. You'd think I was happy for my longtime friend, right? But honestly, I was jealous as hell. Still, I've known him for nearly 20 years, and in the time, we've come to know each other as old, comfortable friends. We're almost bored with each other. He's become finally at peace because he is where he's meant to be, just as I am. And you could say we're living our happily ever after. But what about you and your love story? Are you living your happily ever after? even when it seems like it's not there. Like love is lost. Love is always there, but it just transforms. And that's why now's the time I'm going to ask one final question. Drum roll, please. Keep coming. It's not it. Lakeland City Central Toastmasters, would you accept my membership application and make me the happiest Toastmaster in District 57? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Looks like that's my number down. Who's gonna be the next speaking club?
Thank you, Madam House Speaker. Ashley, Great. At this point in time, I'd like to call up our test speaker, Ashley Chang. I know Ashley, she was a member of Capital Speakers when I joined, and she's given a lot of great speeches that I saw them. And so today I'm going to interview someone I actually know pretty well with some really in-depth questions. Are you ready, Ashley?
Interesting dynamics. So
Let's do it. Yeah, I agree. So, Ashley, what is the process you use to craft and practice what you consider a speech like this for the stage?
I think it's really helpful, Elliot, that someone who puts their draft actually with artificial intelligence, so it can really pare down the content. Sometimes there's parts that are confusing, and I think good at the microphone. Oh, got it. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Artificial intelligence is actually really helpful for editing things down. Your voice, but they make things more clear and they brainstorm really good ideas. So that's really helpful. Artificial intelligence, as well as playing back your speech, recording it, and using gestures to help you remember where you are in the speech. That's really helpful. Yeah.
Another really important question. Having taught speech for 5 years at the elementary and middle school level, I hear one answer to this all the time, but we talk, we're not going to get that answer. What is a famous speech that really inspires you?
I'm sure a lot of us have seen the Steve Jobs speech, his commencement address, Stanford. That was a really great speech. And I remember one thing there where he talks about death is coming from all of us. So it's good to not be confined and limited by others' expectations because it's your life. So make it what you want.
Now, I think most of the question I can ask you is what types of evaluation feedback really help you as a speaker?
Really good feedback from a club. Once you know the speech, it can be easy to rush through it, but to really slow down, especially when the nerves take over, to try to savor the moment, that's important, or else you're going to go really fast with the speech. And also having pauses to feel the emotional weight of when it makes sense to pause within the speech.
That's good. And the very last question is what club are you a member of and what area, division, etc.?
Thanks, Elliot. Before I get into that, I want to thank the district for letting me have this opportunity because I disqualified a division and I really, really wanted to get to perform at district. So I really appreciate this opportunity. I also want to thank Alan Zorster and Ashley Harkness for just setting me up on stage for this venue because there's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to be taken into account. But with your question on clubs, okay, nobody treats me better than NAFTA Toastmasters. Really, thank you so much. Okay, and then I love Goal Achievers. They really helped me out. And I gotta give a shout out to Tales and Tellers, club I coached once, our home club, Capital Speakers, and it's just great to have all these clubs. I think we continue to flourish and survive.
If you have one more question. It looks like I have one more question. I'm thinking, tell me how we can. Okay. So we probably have about another minute. All right. So let me ask another question. Michelle, are we for the 5 minutes concluded yet? No, they didn't time. But really the timing is in there. All right, so here's one more question. Why did you join Toastmasters in the first place?
I was a spelling bee kid, and I think this is the natural progression of that. Just computing and performing, you have to do it. It's a thing within you. And then you see a lot of these academic decathlon kids, the quiz bowl kids in high school, they all become Toastmasters because they're used to speaking, competing, whether it's interview, a prepared speech, from academic decathlon to Toastmasters for a lot of these kids.
Great. That sounds like you have a career here moving up the food chain. So from kids, contestants to adults. With that, I have to know, Sergeant at Arms, are you the go-between Sergeant at Arms? Do we have our first contestant lined up? I'm 2 more minutes. Ashley, are you ready?
Take some of these questions.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay, let me answer the first one. Let me ask you the speech one. I started as a public poet, and if you were alive in the 1980s in college and went to a bar, you could actually have an opening act to be a 20-minute poetry set. Raise your hand if you remember those days. And you could go, I was in LA and then I was in San Francisco, and you can go to 2 bars in one night and be the opening act. And so I did that. I fronted a band. And so the poet that is very controversial, it sort of started that in the 1970s, was a guy who was an alcoholic, well known, Charles Bukowski. Some people don't like some of the things he's written now, but he wrote poetry about living in the streets. He had a full-time job, but he had a tough life. And when you're in college, you think you have a tough life, and you are trying to work through all your different issues with people and everything else. So Charles Bukowski poetry was sort of the speaking, what public speaking was for me. Another question is, how do I prepare? Like you, Ashley, I commute 2 hours a day. So I record my speech with a dictation app, and then I listen to it, and then I record another. I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry, the microphone. I see this thing happening. Then I listen to it again, and then I just say it again from memory. So I'm the type of guy that gets up on the podium with a bullet point list, because I've gone through my speech so many times and it's morphed so many times that when I finally am on the stage, I'm sort of riffing. I'm a riffer speaker.
Talk about memory, because when you play it back, you don't have to keep speech, you can stick on things. It's not just not playing with voice patterns.
And with ChatGPT, take that speech, the best version of it, and say, ChatGPT, 300 to 400 words, and then 4 paragraphs, and then I'm ready. Are we ready for Sergeant at Arms? I think we're getting closer. I'm hopeful. It must have taken them a while to get there, is my question. Or one more. I know that there's a lot of different ways of. Oh, okay. All right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, Toastmasters, honored guests, and most importantly, Ashley Ching. Thank you so much for your very eye-catching and exciting speech today. She loves me. And for those of you who don't know, Ashley has been a member of District 57, and it's so nice to see her with her trademark dynamic style. Did you notice the amazing hook? No one here expected our guest speaker to be starting out on piano, and her eye-catching dress, it really caught our attention. That's the first thing we want to remember as Toastmasters. Gotta have a good hook. Another great element of her speech was this whole Beatles thing. Yesterday, she loves me. I want to hold your hand. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. These were all sprinkled into her story. The other thing that I really loved about this speech was her word choices. This is Toastmasters, right? We love words. And she had so many words. Singing on a skateboard, all the whooshes, the sound effects. These were just really beautifully integrated into first speech. So how can you make this speech better? It's hard to say, right? I mean, it was so exciting to get to our picture. Maybe just a little tiny thing was the audience participation. Maybe it was a little too strong, possibly. She said, "Come on, dance with me." I don't know. I think she lost a little bit of us there because this isn't really a concert. Well, you look like you could start a concert. Maybe it's like, hey, clap with me, something a little more subtle and worked. The most important thing I would say was the heart of it. Was this chair a chair or was he real? I kind of wasn't sure whether this was a real love story or a metaphor for Toastmasters. Were you at the very end proposing to kind of come back to Toastmasters? And when you chair sounded so much like chair, and when you kept saying chair was there, I couldn't tell whether you were talking about chair was there, or like maybe it was there. I don't know. This is kind of a very important, it was the heart of your speech. And for that, I thought that was a loss that really needed to be strong. If you had that, imagine how that would be. Thank you.
See was deep. Everyone knows how appreciate everyone to the stage in the immediately with some play piano. To me, it felt like I'm in for a treat today. It's going to be an amazing. After a long drive, and it was feeling nice to be calm by listening to this soothing music. Did you notice how she entertained all of us with an inspirational and entertaining speech? Amazing. There are three key highlights from her speech that really got me into thinking. It was almost like a high school musical. She took us through the journey of her high school story, of her story, a college story, where she met Jeremy, who was this punk guy on a skateboard. I wish I could climb up on the chair and demonstrate that. Through her body gestures, whoosh, amazing way to capture my audience. I felt as if I was in that story with her. The next moment that caught my attention and was a jaw-dropping moment where she pushed the chair and she said, he fell for me. Those were the moments which really accentuated the speech. And finally, throughout the process, she kept me engaged through her ups and downs of the story. Now, there are two things, Ashley, I would recommend. there was a twist in your story from being the happy to a sad point where I saw you smiling. Now, what if you changed your facial expression to transcend us from a happy to a key part of the story, where you could change the facial expression, show us a little more of that jealousy that you are feeling? That would be a great vision. And the second thing, when you introduced the new person that was almost taking over what you had the connection with Germany, you could introduce her a little bit more so that we know who she is, who this new girl is, where is it coming from, and that would have kept me engaged in the overall story. Overall, what a great way to start a musical. Through all these wonderful expressions, kept me going. And the two suggestions by incorporating that the body language as well as the powerful impact of the narration. What I would challenge you is to take this story to a high school reunion and college reunion and say this. That would be an amazing way. And grab a lot of folks to Toastmasters that are very engagement. Thank you.
Ash, what a speech. You were up here like a sexy saint, taking us through a day in a life with octopus's garden of delights. Not cheering by outstanding renditions of Beatles music. I hope that this goes up on the Toastmasters website about how to give a test speech, because it was a master class in that. I'm going to talk about 3 things that I loved. 2 things I think you could think about and work on. And I'm going to tell them what your superpower is because you absolutely have one. Let me start with your gestures. It was absolutely a master class in how to use a chair. I've never seen somebody get up on stage while already up on stage. When the chair fell over, I fell over with it because that's how clear your gesture was. And that's how concise you were in showing us what you meant. And you can't go from end to end. Some of us did the gestures in the beginning, maybe at the end. You had it from beginning to end. The second thing, what a surprise ending. Nobody saw that coming. The flowers, the wedding, back they go. And right to my competitor there, who doesn't give him the much. The thing that I loved and didn't love at the same time, not loved, didn't love, but the thing I think you did well and worked against you a little bit at the same time was the piano. You made a lot of time going back to the piano. And sometimes the interludes were really so you really had to get to the songs, the instrument, I don't hold your hand, you absolutely did that. But I think you could have spent more time telling us the wonderful, wonderful story. The second thing I will, so it was kind of like, I wouldn't say your best and worst thing, but a thing that worked both for you and against you a little bit at the same time. The other thing that didn't quite always follow was the through line, the Toastmasters. At the beginning, you talked about Toastmasters membership. At the end, you asked Toastmasters would it select you. But in the middle, you talked about something completely different. And I just kind of didn't really follow how those 2 things tied together. I'm sure they did, but maybe a little more coercion or a little more massaging when we get them. Your gift, really your gift, both the gift that you have and the gift that you gave to us, your superpower is this. You made something new seem familiar. And you made something familiar seem new. It was new because you stood up here, you got up here, you entertained us in a way that we'd never seen before. You see your story, which is not our story, so we don't know. Who's going to weigh that for us today? We're going to say, but you absolutely had that. You told it in a way that we could all relate to. And we all had that story. We've all got that person in life. And I think that that was absolutely the greatest thing you did was mixing the new and familiar in a way that you were able to touch each and every person in this room. I thank you so much for this, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Contest chairs and staff, fellow Toastmasters, guests, family, and friends. I'm Tracy Holmes, and I would like to provide some feedback on Miss or Mrs. King's speech. Let's start off with what she did well. Her speech was dazzling. It was a very theatrical performance, and it had a very great element of surprise. Everywhere, from her sparkling dress with shoes that looked like she could dance, to playing the piano, tossing the bouquet at the end, a falling chair. All her theatrical components made her speech highly engaging and kept the audience entertained. Let's keep it. The second thing that I felt where her speech was effective was in her use of descriptive language. For example, when she talked about Jeremy Allen, the textbook bad boy, punching a mic with a death grip, singing heavy metal, I knew exactly what she was talking about. I could picture it perfectly in my mind. Let's keep those words. She also had a very interesting title about love, which made me very curious for what she was talking about, and I felt like it was very painful. Now, let's move on to how Ashley can further influence her speech. Well, I mentioned her theatrical nature of her speech. She primarily used the backstage and the center stage. I'd like her to move up a little bit to the front and use this area too. I was sitting over here. I felt slightly neglected. While she had a great theatrical performance, I felt that she could go further with displaying her emotions. She could talk about her feelings a little bit more. And as I mentioned, going forward, that would be the opportune time to get intimate and talk about how she really felt. I was hurt. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. You don't need all this theatrical display all the time. You can say it in your voice, and you can allow yourself to feel what you actually felt at the time. And that's not actual truth, and it's connected with God. Second, I'd like a little bit more clarity. I was unsure if this guy was her boy or her friend and where we were going. And finally, I'd like a little bit more call to action. Toastmasters was interweaved throughout the speech. At the beginning, she mentioned the person that came and went away, and at the end, she mentioned throwing the bouquet and joining the club. Should we make a commitment? Will we make a commitment? So let's wrap it up. Great theatrical display, great use of descriptive language, kept us engaged. Let's go further with our feelings, add some clarity, especially with
There is a saying that I would like to do today better than I did yesterday, and tomorrow better than I did today. This is for fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and particularly Ashley King. Yesterday, you started with a powerful song that was an immediate hook. It was really, and it got us involved in your speech. There are a couple of things that you did really well. Your gestures and your staging was really well. You used the stage really well. You went down to the piano. You came up to the chair. I think you handled that really well. Also, when you mentioned your partner, Jerry, and you motioned to the chair, it almost sounded like you were talking about the same person, Jerry and chair. It was really well done. Yeah, you talk about transforming and you put your hands over your head to talk about transforming. And then I like it when you use you did that a couple of times throughout your speech. I thought one to grow on is that if you could have done it a third time and made a connection, because the major growth in this speech is the disjointedness. It started with "She Loves You," and then you ended with talking about Toastmasters, and then you had something in the middle talking about the love of your life. So it was a little bit disjointed, and that one to grow on would be to put something in it that would tie it all together and make it so that you could come full circle. You could start with the yesterday and then end with the yesterday, maybe with the quote that I said at the beginning. But if you could tie it together with the hook, it would be really nice to have a continuous thread throughout your speech. You will make it really powerful. I liked it when you talked about then your life fell over and then you kicked the chair over. That was really well done. And then I liked it when you went to the piano and you sang the second song, "I Want to Hold Your Hand." That was really well done. I think you did a really well organized speech. And again, in summary, I would say that your gestures and the music was really well done, was really catchy. One to grow on is to tie it all together with a continuous theme, and that will be one to grow on. And overall, it was a great speech. I enjoyed it, and I think the rest of us will definitely welcome you into the Oakland club that you were trying to get into. Thank you.
I'm totally drunk on divine, not wine. Even though I wish I could catch these flowers. Today, passion finds love can be lost, broken, can never be caught, yet it can be truly transformative. Now, when I saw Asha on the stage, what did it mean to me? Now, hey, what happened? My name is Fix. Before you speak. Today I saw Ashley. She stood here like a magical, magnetical, unbelievable force. You all agree? And all about this, she shared her vulnerability. When she shared about Jeremy, how she felt for him, it was so authentic, real, real, naked spirit. I felt truth in my bones, vulnerability in my nervous system. Fantastic. Now see, connection. Wow. She did not just connect us in a deeper level, but more than that. She slid the audience into a pocket, not just back to the surface. For a moment, I felt like having a deep tissue massage. Free of cost. It was so, I was into a story, the romance and love. It reminded me of those days of my life, looking into the skies and skies, blue, everything. The conversation which she saw how she admired Jeremy, I thought maybe for an instant I could be in the character. Fantastic job. Wow. Now, the E, very important, expressiveness. She did not just influence, but express her to her facial expressions, emotions, painted the colorful words, the vivid images, fascinating pictures, experience. And she walked this red carpet Angelina Jolie. Our girl is smiling and only her free expression to her eyes. It was so beautiful, fantastic. Now, let's raise our speech to the next level. Let's go. Pause. you need to pause, Ashley. That's the most important thing. When he's like, you lost the piece, lost it, pause it. In summary, you aced it. The authentic connection, expressiveness. Today, you gave me the hope. Love can be found like this.
All right, I have a lot of good questions and we can run, who knows, 5 to 7 minutes. So there's 2 microphones, and so just be careful. Yes.
Yes. My name is Monica Yamashita. I'm representing Chamber Chatters in Pleasanton. We are in area F Reach Division 34.
Hello, my name is Vamshi Bupalan. I represent the Danville 1785 Toastmasters Club, even though it's in Danville, but it's actually in San Ramon. A lot of folks in San Ramon. And it's a great club. It is, that's my club member, my president. And I've been with Toastmasters for 5 years. It's been an amazing journey, learned a ton of things. I'm very proud to be part of that, one of the long-standing club in that area.
Have 2 turntables and a microphone, but never 2 microphones and no turntable. I'm Keith Canty. I'm from Southern Maroon Toastmasters Club 1441. I've been at Toastmaster for a little over 14 months. I was gonna go to 1 meeting and leave, and it's ended up being all this time I've stayed. So thank you all for your support.
Good morning. We seem to have woken up a little bit, so it's great. My name is Tracy Holmes. I am part of the Island City Toastmasters Club 5229 in area B22. And when I figure out what division we are or whatever, I'll let you know.
Hi, my name is Hoppy McKenzie. I'm representing East Bay Toastmasters, Division D. We were chartered in 1987, so we're coming up on the anniversary pretty soon. So thank you. I'm Pepper an Indian Hudson American Boy. So I belong to CBC Toastmasters, Fluid Toastmasters. You joined Toastmasters in 2012, then you took us up a touch leave. I'm just kidding. It's been a wonderful journey to be part of the very supporting family type environment. I'm so lucky to have you guys. You guys mean a lot to me, and I love you guys. Oh, okay. That is more magic than the film. It was a real skill and observation. But one thing I've noticed is, especially there is a difference when you do during contests, you have to go through the judging criteria for sure. At the same time, evaluation is so critical. It's a heartbeat. You're not just evaluating the speaker, you're evaluating the audience, you're evaluating yourself and the speaker. It's a 3. You have to consider the triangle, right? So you have to think in that speak at the same time. We believe evaluation is to be like a speech, a good introduction, strong opening, and good conclusion. It's not different than a speech. So that's what I think. Just being authentic and try your best to be positive, empowering, transforming, like the speaker did today. Radical, mystical, magical transformation. I believe the technique that is one of the ones that I try to do is relate the speech title and theme in my evaluation. I believe that it's important to connect with the title and the theme of the speech and make that a thread throughout the evaluation to somehow make it play on words or some sort of metaphor that relates to the speaker's speech.
Speak the truth in love because you are the speaker's biggest fan. While you do that, have a clear structure and a clear takeaway with very specific details. If you're going to say why, like something that the speaker did well, say why that was impactful to the audience. Example, if it was theatrical, I was like, it's great. Why was that important? It kept us engaged and on our toes.
I didn't touch the flowers, so I didn't have that. I'm trying to respond to the speaker's creativity with creativity of my own. And we're all up here, all six of us saw the same thing. And the three that I saw, we all commented on similar things. So the trick is, what can I say that the speaker isn't going to hear? What can I bring from my own experience that I can use to relate to the speaker? I'm a huge fan of evaluation. I preach in my club that, like, if you think you can speak, try evaluating. So it's a very important skill, and I'm very glad you asked me that question.
As an evaluator, I always try to look for what is the essence of the speaker's speech? What is the speaker trying to convey through their 5 to 7 minutes? And the second thing is, how does it make me feel as I am watching, listening, being part of that? So those are the two things that helps me stay grounded. And then how the structure and all these technical things will follow. But I think essence and how they make me feel are the two things that then help me to formulate my evaluation and structure what are the highlights and where I believe once I understand the essence and how they make me feel, that helps me to then provide constructive feedback to say what else could have taken that speech to the next level. Thank you.
So I learned this at one of my TLI conferences. This is an acronym that I use for evaluations, and that's VEGA. V stands for vocal variety or visual, right? Because you always want to have that engagement. Is it there or not there? E. E stands for eye contact. And this could be in an in-person audience or on Zoom. G stands for gestures, and I use that for not just like your immediate area, but are you using the stage? And then A is audience awareness, audience engagement. If you have some of those elements, it kind of gives me a structure, or at least some elements to begin with. I also like to think, well, are they tied to, or do they end with a call to action? And pausing, always, it's always an area for improvement. So when I have those default checklist in my head, it keeps me grounded. And of course, the last but not least is content. The rule of threes is really essential, in my opinion. You want to have the content before you have the delivery. Ooh. What? Did I get 5 minutes?
I would say emotions, how it touches my emotions, and that sort of narrates the whole thing. Whether it's watching a movie, whether it's listening to someone who's in pain, or whether it's sharing somebody else's joy, I think it's all about the emotions. That's what strikes.
I think another one is connection. You have to connect with the audience. You have to connect with, um, you know, anybody, and there's such a huge audience. So how do you connect with not just some, but as many of the people in the audience as possible?
I think it's very important to provide people with a new experience to say something that they haven't heard before, because that's how we grow and progress as people and as a society. So I think a good speech is a teaching speech that gives you, and it doesn't have to be, like here's your ABCs or there's the Pythagorean theorem. It can just be about, here, think about this in a way you've never thought about it before. And that speaks to connection. And I think that's the thing that makes a great speech great.
I'll give an example. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. The speech is impactful because it sets a vision for positive transformation. So every speech doesn't need to be that powerful, but you should be motivating your audience to believe the unbelievable, that you can do it. You're more than you think you are. You're greater, and to have hope and faith in your fellow human.
Thank you. Also, I would like to say Dr. King is one of my favorite speakers. One element that, as being a member of Laugh Lovers, I think is important is humor. And I have to go back through Dr. King's speech and see if he ever used humor a lot. The topic of the day was very serious as it is today. So it's hard to put humor in, but humor is very cutting and witty.
In one word, authentic, because doesn't matter the structure, body language, even it could be a broken grammar. If someone speaks from their heartbeat, an audience can feel. Like for instance, even energy speaks before you speak. I strongly believe in that. You might have seen some, I'm from India, by the time you know, you're seeing some meditative gurus. They just come there, won't even open their mouth. There is something, the demeanor, there is something that happens, right? A contagious energy. I think that comes with the pure intention. When you open your mouth, in my opinion, my only reason that I'm opening up my mouth is to transform and touch, to make an impact in some capacity, right? If I have that intention clear, in order to be a better speaker, you better be a better human, not a better, right? Become a better human being, speech comes in from inside, not outside.
Thank you.
And when I call you, please come to the stage. You've been done that drill, so you know how to get here. Tracy Holmes, third place winner. Please come to the stage.
Yeah.
Are you ready for number two? All right, number two, second place winner, Santosh Kumar. Now, Sal is explaining how you handle your trophy properly. We will move on to the first place winner. I want to go. Dave Cantor.